how have you guys overcome, and I don't know if you have fully overcame it yet, but how do you guys deal with like people who don't understand the lyrical content, or like the approach for like bands like Cannibal Corpse and death metal bands that like, grandize all this like horror and like, brutal imagery? Because obviously, like, one of the things I remember as a kid growing up was, which probably like made me not listen to Cannibal Corpse for a long period of time when I was younger,
Mm.
was the album artwork and stuff like that. Just was like that. It was crazy, just like all the other death metal bands were. But like, how have you guys overcome that, and how do you deal with it still to this day? Because obviously, like, culture's probably crazier now than it was 10 years ago. But either or.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've tried over the years in interviews, and I'll do it now, and we've done it, hundreds of times before. But we'll say, it's entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
We do not want to promote violence in any way. Like just get that out of the way right away. That it's not different than somebody writing a horror novel or making a horror movie or any other form of violent entertainment. But I think where people get confused with the music is how it sounds, first of all.
Right.
So it sounds really brutal. So to have these brutal lyrics on top of it, and you're presenting yourself in this really aggressive way on stage, like just totally raging. So some people I could see on the outside of the scene not really understanding where we're coming from. Oh, are these guys like promoting this stuff that they sing about? It's like, no, that's not it. And any more than Stephen King is promoting something violent that happened in one of his books or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to be clear about that it's fictional entertainment. And it's confusing, I think, for music for the reasons I mentioned, and also because music is usually used by people to express something that they experienced in their
Right.
life.
Right.
You
Right.
know what
Right.
I
Right.
mean? Or, yeah, they're writing about a relationship or some problem they've had. And we're writing about stuff that we have no experience with.
Yeah.
You know what I Thankfully, you know what I
I
mean?
think that
Like
is
it's
the
all
biggest
really
disconnect.
horrible stuff.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest disconnect in the way and how you put that, because a lot of people do use music to even correlate to their personal life in general. Like it could be a song for a specific moment, so a lot of people just equate the two together. And people don't like concept albums are really, they're fun, and I love concept albums, but a lot of people don't necessarily understand when it is a concept album or when it's not a concept album, so they don't necessarily know that it's a storyline they're following, or if it's like
Mm.
the artist's life or experience. So yeah, that makes a little bit of sense there.
Yeah, so we've tried to make that clear, and I think when it comes to violent entertainment in general, I think probably people don't give themselves enough credit for being able to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like because if it was really that big of a thing, how could any of these horror movies even get made? I'm going to take death metal out of the picture for a minute and just look at how popular really violent horror movies
Oh
are.
yeah, for sure.
They're way bigger than the biggest death metal band.
Yeah.
Like there's a definitely a huge audience for macabre things. And I think the disconnect with music is some of that stuff I mentioned, to
Yeah.
where it's just hard for people to understand music being used for horror, where it's easier for them to understand it being used for a book or a movie,
Yeah.
or a TV show or whatever. But yeah, some of the stuff, like I didn't know, I hadn't followed the show. I guess it's Hannibal,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up seeing an episode recently, and I was like, this was on network TV,
Yeah.
this show. I couldn't believe it, because that's like R-rated violence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, things have come a long way in terms of what people will accept.
Oh yeah.
So I think overall people get it. They know the difference between horror fiction and something that's real or
Yeah.
whatever. So, and plus there's horrible stuff on the news all the time
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's kind of
you
like
know,
back in the day you would so and like they would have these like faces of death videos or the VHSs where and
mhm.
now you see all that stuff on Twitter and Instagram or TikTok all day long, those scenes, but beforehand you could only see it like your buddy had to have like an older brother that had the tape, and then of course those
Mhm.
tapes all had like bands like Cannibal Corpse and all these other napalm death styled music, death metal in the background of it while all these wild images and videos are going on.
I think one thing that is important to mention too, you're talking about how things are accepted a bit more now, but they will always be gross. You know, it's always grotesque, disturbing stuff. It should be. Yeah. That's how you should feel about these things. Right. You know what I mean? Like the artwork that we do, it's disturbing on purpose. It's not meant to be nice. You know what I mean? I don't ever want it to be like someone looks at Butchered at Birth and it's like, oh, that's nice. You know, like, no, it's
put that on the
really,
wall there.
It's really disturbing, and that was the intent of the art. And ditto for the lyrics and the music. It's meant to be that way. You know, you don't want, you know, entertainment. I mean, you want that kind of stuff to be out there, and of course it's gross, you know, but we also don't want people to feel like they shouldn't do it just because it's disturbing. You know what I mean? Like, it should be something that people can express. You know, obviously, like I said, horror movies are enormously popular, you know, so there's clearly a morbid curiosity that people have, for sure. Not just people who like death metal.
Yeah, I agree. You know? I agree. This is an easy culprit or to point a finger at.